I had grown familiar with the sound of the key turning in the lock at precisely 6 o'clock in the evening. For the past 5 years, that sound had belonged to only one person. But today, it was joined by unfamiliar footsteps on the old wooden floor, heavy, hesitant, like someone measuring a foreign space. "Dad, I'm home." Emma appeared at the kitchen door, wearing a tired smile I hadn't seen in years. Behind her, a tall man entered, his eyes scanning the living room before they met mine. Marcus. I'd heard of him through the brief phone calls with Emma, but seeing him for the first time felt like watching an actor preparing for his role. "Good evening, Sire. It's a pleasure to finally meet you." He offered his hand dry, stiff, and held the handshake longer than necessary. I noticed how his eyes drifted past me toward the antique cabinet, where the paintings Sarah once chose still hung. That glance wasn't the look of a son-in-law visiting his wife's childhood home. It was the appraisal of a man tallying value. Dinner passed beneath a strain, only I seemed to sense. Emma spoke of her new job, the apartment they had recently vacated, her voice carefully hiding something behind its rhythm. Marcus picked at his food mechanically, but his gaze never rested from the alarm system near the front door to the glass case of heirlooms, then finally pausing at the door to my bedroom. "You've got quite the modern security system, don't you?" The question dropped in just as Emma was talking about her job hunt. "Just the basics." "Is the safe in your bedroom? I'd imagine it's best to be cautious with valuable things." Emma turned to him, surprised. I laid down my fork. Silence fell like dust across the room. "Why do you care?" "Oh, I just worry about you, Sire. This neighborhood seems too quiet." "Quiet." From his mouth, the word sounded like a judgment on solitude, on an old man living alone surrounded by things no one was guarding. I looked at Emma. She smiled, proud that her husband seemed to care about her father. But 30 years as a private investigator had taught me the difference between concern and surveillance. "Do you have any special habits, sir, like bedtime routines? Or do you ever spend nights away?" This time, even Emma noticed something was wrong. "Marcus, why all the questions?" "Just trying to plan our schedule better, sweetheart." But the way he looked at that room, my room, was not with the eyes of a man eager to adjust. It was the look of someone calculating risk and reward. After they had gone upstairs, I sat alone in the living room with a cooling cup of coffee. The light from Margaret's window next door was still on. She never slept early. She stayed up reading. And I had come to count on that glow during long, lonely nights. Then came the sound of footsteps upstairs. Marcus, pacing from the bedroom to the hallway, and back again. It lasted 10 minutes. Then quieted. I wondered what he was doing up there, but chose not to let suspicion betray itself too early. When I turned off the lights to head upstairs, I saw him standing by the living room window, staring out into the yard. He didn't know I was watching. His face had changed completely, no longer the polite mask from dinner, but a sharp, focused mask of calculation. The next morning, the doorbell rang at precisely 9 o'clock. Margaret Chen stood on the front porch with a tray of oatmeal cookies and a small teapot, just as she had every Saturday for the past 5 years. I noticed a strange car parked in front of the house. "Robert." Her voice was gentle, not nosy, just quietly observant. Margaret had a way of asking questions without making one feel interrogated. "Emma and her husband are staying for a bit." "Oh, that's good. This house could use a little laughter. We sat at the kitchen table as usual. But today Margaret's eyes wandered more than they typically did. She paid attention to the sounds from upstairs, where Marcus and Emma had yet to wake. "Your son-in-law seems rather active." "How do you know?" "Last night I saw him walking around the property, perhaps just trying to get a feel for the place." Margaret sipped her tea, her eyes looking past the window toward the backyard. "Around 11. He went outside to take pictures. Probably wanted to send photos of the new place to friends." I set my cup down. Margaret never said anything without a reason. "Are you sure he was taking photos?" I saw the flash, but oddly enough, he was snapping pictures of the alarm system and the rear entry. We were silent for a while. Margaret knew I needed time to absorb that. Maybe he was just checking the house for Emma's sake. Perhaps, but her tone suggested otherwise. Margaret had lived long enough to know the difference between genuine concern and something darker. "There's one more thing. Early this morning, a man came by asking about you. I was out watering the garden and overheard him." "What did he want?" "He was asking about the Morrison household, how many people lived here, whether anyone traveled often. I told him I didn't know and suggested he speak to you directly." Margaret stood, collecting the teacups with her familiar, unhurried movements. "Probably just an insurance salesman or something. But Robert, if you need anything, don't hesitate to call me." The way she said that last sentence told me this was no polite offer. Margaret had sensed something, and in her own quiet way, she was warning me. After she left, I stood by the window, watching her disappear down the path she'd walked 100 times. Her gentle warning lingered like smoke in the room. When the doorbell rang again, but this time, it wasn't the predictable visit of a kind neighbor. Through the glass, I saw a tall, narrow figure, the shoulders slightly hunched in the way people get when they're used to hiding. 3 years had passed, but I recognized that stance immediately, always ready to run. "Hi, Dad." His voice was hoarse, his eyes unable to meet mine. Tyler had grown gaunt. His face was sharper, leaner, etched with shadows. I didn't remember being there before. "Can I come in?" We sat facing each other in the living room. The physical distance between us was short, but the emotional chasm was enormous. Tyler glanced toward the upper floor, where Emma and Marcus were still stirring. "I heard Emma came home." "How did you know?" I still keep in touch with her." That surprised me. Emma had never mentioned staying in contact. I came to apologize. "Dad, for everything. I know I hurt you. I hurt all of us." Tyler bowed his head, hands trembling, fingers knotted together. But something in his voice, it sounded rehearsed, like a speech practiced too many times. "I've been clean. 6 months now. I have a steady job. A place of my own." "Then why are you here?" That question made him lift his eyes, and I caught a flash of panic before he masked it again. "I miss home. I miss you." At that moment, the sound of descending footsteps. Marcus entered, hair unkempt, but eyes fully alert. He looked at Tyler with exaggerated surprise. "You must be Tyler. I'm Marcus, Emma's husband." They shook hands, but I noticed the handshake lingered, and Tyler nodded too deliberately, as if confirming something silently. "I've heard a lot about you. Probably not the good kind." Tyler forced a smile. but his eyes drifted over Marcus in a way that struck me as oddly familiar. Lunch was tense. Emma tried to lighten it with stories from her old job. Tyler barely ate, watching Marcus more than his plate. I noticed the glances they exchanged quick, coded, and Emma remained oblivious. "Got any plans?" Tyler Marcus asked casually. "Not really. Maybe stay a while. If Dad's all right with that." I hadn't answered before Marcus chimed in. "Fantastic family should stick together." That afternoon, with Emma out shopping, I saw Tyler and Marcus slip into the garage. I followed, quietly, stopping just beyond the door, close enough to hear. Hidden in shadow. "Everything's still on track." Tyler's voice was nervous. "We just need more time." The old man's more cautious than I thought. "But you said a few days would be enough." "Tyler, this debt isn't a joke. They've already threatened to take my hand." A chill crept through my spine. Tyler hadn't truly cleaned up, and Marcus, the man Emma trusted with her future, was clearly in on something far worse than I'd feared. "The only way is to get that safe key. Where does he hide it?" "I don't know. He's always been secretive about it." "Then we'll need another method. Does Emma know anything?" "She doesn't. And don't bring her into this." There was desperation in Tyler's tone, but also a warning. Blood still meant something to him. It seemed. "All right. All right. But remember, we've got 1 week. After that..." The sound of Emma's car pulling into the drive ended the conversation. I retreated to the living room. Heart pounding. The world around me suddenly colder. More fragile than ever. Both my children, one directly, one blindly, were betraying me. And this time, the stakes were far greater than they had ever been before. That night, I lay in bed, but sleep would not come. Fragments of the garage conversation spun endlessly in my mind. Emma had long since fallen into a deep sleep. She always did when she returned home, as if the walls of her old room still sheltered her in the innocence of childhood. But then, a sound below. Footsteps deliberati. Careful. Sidestepping the creaky floorboards. I looked at the clock, 2:17 a.m. Slowly, I rose and crept to the door. Through the narrow crack, I saw a faint light in the kitchen and heard low voices. Tyler and Marcus, two silhouettes seated across from one another at the very table where, just hours before, we had shared dinner like a family. I descended the stairs soundlessly, melting into the shadows of the hallway, close enough to catch every word, invisible to those in the kitchen. "Are you sure he's asleep?" Tyler's voice trembled, far removed from the remorse he had performed during the day. "It's 2 a.m. Old men sleep early." Marcus's tone was flat, cold an edge I hadn't heard before. There was no trace left of the courteous son-in-law Emma adored. "You need to tell me the truth. Marcus, how bad is it?" "The house Emma's living in, I mortgaged it for $300,000. I clamped my hand over my mouth to stop the cry that rose in my throat. Emma had no idea. $300,000. Are you insane? I thought I'd win. It was a sure bet I had insider information. And now they want the money in a week. Or they take the house, or worse. They hurt Emma. Those words cut deeper than any blade. This wasn't just about debt, it was about my daughter's safety. "And you?" Marcus asked, turning to Tyler. "How deep are you in?" 120,000. Same people. Then we're talking over 400 grand. We need that money this week. Tyler looked down, his hands trembling. I've tried everything. Sold what I had. Borrowed from anyone who'd still answer my calls. That's why we're here. Marcus leaned forward, voice dropping to a near whisper. But his intent was sharp as steel. The old man's got a safe in his bedroom. Emma mentioned it once. Bonds. Gold. Cash at least 500 grand. But how do we get it? Dad never told anyone the code. There are other ways. We can force him. No, Tuller snapped. I'm not hurting him. Then you'd rather let Emma get hurt, let her lose the house. Everything. A long silence stretched between them. I could almost feel Tyler's mind tearing itself apart between the love he still carried for his father and the fear instilled by the men who had threatened his life. There has to be another way. There is. Marcus poset, as if weighing the consequences of what he was about to say. If the old man had an accident, a regrettable fall, a heart attack, things would be much easier. Emma would inherit everything. And we could fix this clean. Painless. My blood turned to ice. That was no longer theft, it was murder. Premeditated. Calculated. My murder. What the hell are you saying? Tyler whispered, voice trembling. I'm talking about the final option. He's old. His heart's not strong. It wouldn't take much. Marcus. You're insane. That's my father. And Emma is my wife. You think I want this, you think I enjoy it, but we're out of options. I had to lean against the wall to keep from collapsing. My hands were shaking not with fear, but with a sorrow so deep it hollowed me out. My son, my boy, was sitting at a table, listening to a plan to kill me. Give me time to think. We don't have time. Tyler, tomorrow, I'll look for where he hides the key. If I don't find it, we'll have to do it the hard way. They rose. I retreated silently to my room. In the darkness, I listened to their footsteps, climbed the stairs, Tyler heading to the sofa, Marcus returning to Emma's side, where she still slept peacefully, unaware of the nightmare unfolding around her. I lay awake until dawn. This wasn't about money anymore. It was about my life, Emma's future, and the crumbling ruins of a family I thought I understood. Dawn broke with a silence that felt unnatural. I sat by my bedroom window, watching the first light filter through the trees, trying to summon some measure of peace from a world that no longer felt safe. The house that had once been my refuge now felt like a snare. From the kitchen came the soft clink of china, Emma making coffee. Unaware, Marcus sat pretending to read the paper. His posture relaxed. Eyes sharp, Tyler sat silently. Dark rings under his eyes. Saying nothing. All of us were playing parts. A family at breakfast. While the air beneath was thick with betrayal. I think I'll visit Margaret for a bit, I announced after the strained meal. Emma looked up from her cup. Are you all right? Dad. You look tired. Just age. Sweetheart. Marcus eyed me closely. Would you like me to drive you? No need. Margaret's house is only a few minutes' walk. She opened the door before I could knock. As if she had been expecting me. Her face bore none of its usual warmth. I figured you'd come. We sat in her sunlit living room. Light filtering through lace curtains casting soft patterns across the rug. But the story I was about to tell was not soft. Margaret. I need your help. I know. I saw Tyler arrive yesterday. And I saw how Marcus looked at your house, like a man tallying the worth of things. I told her everything, the conversation in the garage, the plan to break into the safe. And most of all, Marcus's suggestion of an accident. Margaret listened in silence, nodding occasionally, as though confirming what she had long suspected. "Are you surprised?" she asked when I finished. "I'm shocked. I never thought Tyler would. Tyler is a pawn. Robert, weak. Scared, but not cruel. Marcus is the dangerous one." She rose and looked out the window toward my home. "Does Emma know anything?" "Nothing. She's completely in the dark." "Good. Then we need to keep her safe." Margaret turned, her eyes steady, filled with resolve. "You think I'd let them hurt you? We've been friends for over 20 years. Robert, I won't let them win." We spent the morning crafting a plan. Margaret revealed a surprising level of preparedness. Her late husband, it turned out, had been a private investigator before retirement. "What we need most," Margaret said, "is evidence. We can't act on your word alone. We need to catch them in the act. But if I'm in the house, they won't make a move." "Exactly. You need to give them the chance." Margaret suggested a bold strategy. I would announce a weekend visit to an old friend in the neighboring city, an overnight trip. The perfect opportunity for Marcus and Tyler to act. "But I won't actually go," I said. "Right. You'll stay here. We'll monitor everything from my house." Margaret already had the equipment, hidden cameras connected to her phone, audio recorders, even a remote-triggered alarm system. "Where do we place them?" "Living room, kitchen, and especially near the safe. When they make their move, we'll have everything we need." Then Margaret offered one last idea, a gift for the intruders. "Henry once told me about a device the police use. Like a glitter bomb, it explodes fluorescent powder that clings to the skin for days. Combine that with a sound alarm, and you've got complete chaos. You can get one. I still have a few old contacts. Trust me. Robert, we're going to make them regret ever thinking they could outsmart you." That afternoon, I returned home with a different weight in my chest, not dread, but resolve. I had a plan, and I had an ally. Emma moved about the kitchen, preparing dinner. Marcus asked how my walk had gone. Concern pasted on his face. Tyler kept his eyes down. "I just got a call from William," I said during dinner. "He's invited me to visit this weekend. I might go Saturday and stay the night." Emma looked up. "William, your old friend from Springfield?" "Yes. Haven't seen him in nearly a year." I caught it. Then the quick glance Marcus and Tyler exchanged. Exactly what I wanted. "Do you need a ride to the station?" Marcus offered. "No need. I'll drive. It's a short trip." That night, as I packed a suitcase with nothing but old books and a few shirts, I felt a strange kind of peace. For the first time in days, I knew what I had to do. The war wasn't over, but at last, I wasn't fighting it alone. Thursday passed beneath a strained stillness. I kept up the pretense of preparing for my weekend trip, while in truth, Margaret and I worked in quiet lockstep to finalize the trap. Each time I crossed paths with Marcus or Tyler, I reminded myself not to let my hands ball into fists. They still thought I was blind. That blindness would be my shield. Emma sensed something in the air, an invisible shift. She watched me more often, her questions softer. more frequent. Are you feeling all right? Dad, she'd ask. And I'd nod. Lie. Smile. Her concern so pure, so unaware, cut deeper than any of their lies. Friday morning. I was seated with the paper when I heard her call from the bedroom. Marcus. Can you come up here a minute? Her tone was unsettled. Marcus set his coffee down, the line of his mouth tightening as he ascended the stairs. I listened. At first only muffled words. But then Emma's voice, raised slightly, laced with disbelief. What is this? Marcus. Emma sat on the bed, pale as linen, a stack of papers clutched in her trembling hands. Marcus stood in the doorway, caught off guard, his face beginning to crumble. Where did you find those? In your jacket pocket. I was going to bring it down to the laundry. She held them up, voice breaking. Mortgage papers. You mortgaged my family's house. Marcus moved toward her, gently reaching for her hand. His voice took on that honeyed, manipulative softness I now knew too well. Let me explain. Darling. $300,000. Marcus, you put our home on the line for $300,000. Her tears began to fall, sudden and furious. She pulled her hand away, stepping back. Why? Why would you do something like this without telling me? Emma, please, just listen. It was a temporary investment. A what? She shook her head in disbelief. Into what? A business opportunity. I had solid intel. It was a sure win. I was going to double our return. You lied to me. She stared at him, broken. If it were legitimate, why didn't you tell me? Why hide it? Why mortgage a house that isn't yours? Marcus, sensing her slipping from his grip, switched tactics. He sank onto the bed, head bowed like a penitent man. You're right. I was wrong. I have a problem. A problem. Gambling. He said the word like a man coughing up poison. Emma stood frozen. I thought I could manage it. I thought I'd win it all back. But you lost. I'm sorry. Emma, I'm truly sorry. He stood, reaching for her again. This time, she didn't shove him away. She simply stood still, rigid as stone. What do we do now? I'll fix it. I'll repay everything. I promise. With what, Marcus? It's $300,000. I'll ask your father. Emma reeled. She looked at him as though he'd slapped her. No. You can't. He's old. His heart if he finds out. Then what? Let them take the house. Let them come here and... He stopped himself. Too late. And what? Who do you owe? Marcus. People. Not the kind you want to owe. Emma sank onto the bed, burying her face in her hands. Oh God. What have we gotten ourselves into? Marcus knelt beside her, stroking her shoulder. Listen, my love. I'll fix this. But you have to trust me. And you have to help me. Help how? Don't tell your father. Not yet. Give me 1 week to find another solution. Emma lifted her head, eyes swollen with tears. Do you have a plan? Yes. I'm talking to some people. Worst case. I'll go to him myself. You swear? I swear. He kissed her forehead. But even from afar, I could see the frost in his eyes. No remorse. No love. Only calculation. "I love you so much." She whispered. "I love you too." But his words were flat. His gaze slipped toward the window. He held her as if she were leverage. Not a wife. Even now. He was using her love as a cloak. "If anything happens," Marcus murmured, "remember I did it all for us. For our future." What could happen? Nothing, darling. Just know that sometimes hard choices must be made to protect the ones we love. Emma nodded, blind to the deeper meaning. She saw only a husband in pain, not the predator tightening the snare. "I won't tell Dad," she whispered, "but only for a week. 1 week is all I need." Marcus smiled, a smile that belonged to a man who believed he had won. Emma had fallen for him again. She would keep his secret, and if anything happened to me, she would be the one questioned for knowing and saying nothing. I left my hiding place with a heart pounding like a drum. Marcus wasn't merely desperate. He was dangerous, an emotional puppeteer who had turned my daughter into an unwitting accomplice. This weekend would be the endgame, and I had to make sure Emma didn't fall with them. Friday evening. I performed my final act. After a strained dinner, Emma with swollen eyes. Marcus feigning sympathy. Tyler unusually quiet. I brought the suitcase to the car. A suitcase, not for travel, but for show. "Sleep well, Dad," Emma said as she hugged me at the door. I leaned close to her ear. "Be careful, sweetheart." She looked at me, puzzled. Sensing something in my voice she couldn't place, but she only nodded and smiled faintly. "You too. Have a good trip." Marcus followed me to the porch, waving as I pulled out of the driveway. In the rearview mirror, I watched him standing there, unmoving, until my car turned the corner. Then, like a mask slipping, his face changed. He turned inside with a new purpose in his stride. But I didn't head for Portland. I circled the neighborhood and pulled into Margaret's garage from the back alley. She was already waiting. Her small living room transformed into a quiet command post. Monitors lined the desk. A tablet synced to the surveillance feeds. Her phone, ready for the authorities. Most importantly, she held the remote that could trigger every safeguard we'd placed. "Now we wait," she said, pouring me a cup of tea. "Are you certain they'll act tonight?" "I'm certain. Marcus isn't the waiting kind." At 10 p.m., the lights in my house dimmed. Only the living room lamp remained on, and the soft glow from Emma's bedroom. On the monitor, we saw her watching television while Marcus sat beside her, checking his watch every few minutes. Tyler had vanished from the camera's view since 9 o'clock. "They're waiting for Emma to fall asleep," I whispered. 1115 p.m. Emma turned off the television, kissed Marcus goodnight, and went upstairs. The light in her room flicked off 20 minutes later. 1145 p.m. Marcus moved to the kitchen, opened the fridge, took out a beer, but instead of drinking it, he went to the garage. On the camera, we watched him meet Tyler, who had been hiding there all along. "It's starting," Margaret murmured. Midnight, like wraiths in the dark. Marcus and Tyler slipped back into the house. Tyler carried a small flashlight. Marcus had a black duffel bag. First, they disabled the primary security system, just as we had predicted. Marcus knew the code. Emma had shown him once in passing. His arrogance blinded him. "Stupid old man thinks he's clever," Marcus whispered on camera. But they didn't know about the backup system. Cleverly disguised in plain sight, an old ceramic clock. A decorative frame, each feeding directly to Margaret's monitor. Tyler stood watch at the front and back doors. Marcus climbed the stairs. We watched as he paused before Emma's door. Listening. Then moved toward mine. "He's in your room," Margaret said, her fingers tightening around the phone. He flicked on his flashlight, scanning the space with calm precision. He went to the dresser, one by one. He opened the drawers. When he found the key in the bottom drawer, he smiled, victory glowing in the dim light. Then he made his way to the living room, to the small safe tucked away behind the armchair. Tyler fidgeted near the window, watching the empty street. Sweat beaded on his brow despite the cool night. Marcus knelt, inserted the key, paused for effect. "Just a few more minutes," he said to Tyler. That's when he made his fatal mistake. He opened the safe with a triumphant tug, unaware of the wire just inside. Boom. A deafening pop. A cloud of glittering blue powder exploded from the safe, coating Marcus's face, hair, and hands in fluorescent dust. At the same instant, the alarm roared to life, an ear-splitting siren that echoed through the entire house. "What the hell?" Marcus screamed, blinded, choking on the fine powder. Tyler panicked. "We've got to run now." He sprinted to the front door, locked. Margaret had sealed the house remotely. "It won't open," he shouted. Marcus staggered, scrubbing his face, only smearing the powder further. "Try the back door." "No good, also locked." "We're trapped. This is a setup." Upstairs. Lights flicked on. Emma appeared at the top of the stairs, wearing her robe, eyes wide with confusion and fear. "What's happening, Marcus?" She froze when she saw her husband covered in blue powder, crouched by the open safe, duffel bag half-zipped. Her voice cracked. "Oh God. Marcus, what have you done?" "Emma, wait, I can explain." But then came the sirens, growing louder. Red and blue lights flashed through the windows. Margaret had made the call the moment the glitter bomb exploded. Tyler tried the windows. No luck. Marcus stood, dazed and furious. "This is your fault," he yelled at Tyler. "You said he was out of town." "You opened the damn safe," Tyler shouted back. Emma slowly sank onto the stairs, clutching her head. Tears flowed freely. Back at Margaret's, we watched in silence. The final act had begun. The sirens were no longer distant. They were deafening. Police lights danced against the windows, strobing the living room in red and blue. Marcus and Tyler froze, cornered animals in a trap of their own design. Then came the knock, loud, commanding. Police opened the door. Marcus spun, wild-eyed, then turned to Tyler. "This is your fault. You should have kept watch." Tyler's voice cracked. "You promised me no one would get hurt." Shut up, and help me." But there was nowhere to go. The door unlocked from the outside. 2 officers stepped into the room, weapons drawn, floodlights illuminating every corner. Marcus lifted his hands, powdered blue and shaking. "Don't move," the officer barked. Tyler immediately raised his hands, his face ashen, eyes wide with shame. Behind them, Emma stood frozen on the staircase, her body stiff, her heart visibly breaking. She had seen the truth with her own eyes, and there was no more room for lies. From outside the frame, I stepped forward. "Evening. Gentlemen," I said as I entered the room. "Sorry to crash the party." Marcus turned toward me, eyes bulging. You were supposed to be in Portland." I smiled. Calm. I changed my mind, decided to stay in and see what mischief might occur. Emma gasped, "Dad." I nodded to her gently. "It's all right now. Sweetheart, it's over." Tyler took a step back. I didn't know he'd go this far. "I swear." "Save it." Marcus growled, his mask of civility completely shattered. "You're the one who got us caught." "I got us caught. You were the one." Margaret stepped into the doorway, holding a small device. "May I suggest everyone listen to something?" She pressed play. Out of the recorder came their voices clear, unfiltered, damning. "The old man's gone. This is our only shot. She won't wake up. She took her pills. We've got the whole night. If he comes back early, then we handle it. Old man. Weak heart. Who would question a fall?" Emma trembled. No. This isn't real." Her eyes met Marcus's, now panicked. "Emma," he pleaded, "I didn't mean it. It was the pressure. I was desperate. You were going to kill my father." Her voice, quiet but cutting, sliced through the air like a blade. Marcus took a step toward her. "Please. Listen. Everything I did was for us." She flinched. "There is no us anymore," she whispered. Officers stepped in and cuffed Marcus. One held Tyler, who didn't resist. As they were led outside, Marcus turned back. "Emma, you said you loved me. You said you'd wait." She didn't answer. She turned away, walked down the stairs into my arms, sobbing. The blue powder still floated in the air. The sirens faded, and for the first time in weeks, I felt the weight begin to lift. By the time the last squad car disappeared down the road, silence had returned to the neighborhood. But it was a different kind of silence. This one did not carry the scent of danger, but the ache of revelation. Emma sat curled on the sofa, wrapped in the old blanket her mother had knitted years ago, eyes red and distant. Margaret moved through the house like a quiet guardian, collecting shattered pieces, both literal and emotional. I stood at the window, watching the empty street where only hours ago betrayal had nearly bloomed into something fatal. Behind me, Emma spoke. "Dad, how long did you know?" "Since Monday," I said without turning. "I overheard them in the garage." "Why didn't you tell me?" I turned and met her eyes. "Because you loved him too much to believe me. You needed to see it yourself." Her lips trembled. I let him in. I let him in, and he nearly destroyed everything. "No. Sweetheart," I said softly, sitting beside her. "He didn't destroy you. That would have meant he won. But look at you. You saw the truth. You stood up. That takes more strength than you know." Margaret came in from the kitchen and gently placed a cup of tea in Emma's hands. Then she sat across from us, her presence steady as stone. "You don't need to say anything tonight," she said. "There's time." But Emma did speak haltingly. quietly. I thought I knew him. I thought he was my future. "You'll have another future," I said, resting my hand on hers. "One not built on lies." We sat there for a long time, the three of us, saying little. The glow of Margaret's lamp pooled gently across the room, as if trying to warm what had been made cold. The next day, Emma didn't get out of bed until noon. I let her rest. Margaret brought over a tray of oatmeal and fruit, placing it quietly by the door. She didn't knock. In the afternoon, I got a call from the sheriff's office. Marcus had retained a lawyer and was refusing to speak further. Tyler, on the other hand, had confessed everything. He says Marcus blackmailed him. The sheriff told me, says he threatened to hurt Emma if Tyler didn't help. He's naming names, providing details. He's scared, but he seems genuine. I thanked him and hung up. Then I walked outside, into the yard I had barely noticed in recent weeks. The air was different, no longer weighted by suspicion, but by the quiet labor of healing. That evening, Margaret came over again with a casserole and some mail. She handed me a sealed envelope. "For you." Inside was a note from Tyler, scribbled in shaky handwriting. "Dad, you don't deserve our forgiveness. I won't ask for it, but I need you to know I was never going to let him hurt you. I didn't know how to stop him, but I was buying time. That's all I could do. I know I failed you. I wanted to protect Emma. I'm sorry for everything. Tyler." I folded the note slowly, the ache in my chest, dull but deep. I didn't know if I could forgive him, but I knew he had not crossed that final line. That mattered. 3 days after the arrests, Emma left her room. She came downstairs wearing the sweater her mother had left behind, her hair tied up, her eyes clearer. "Can we go for a walk?" she asked. We did. Down the quiet street, past the mailbox, past Margaret's front gate, where she waved from her rose bushes. Emma didn't speak until we reached the park at the corner. "I want to stay here a while," she said. "Just be here." So we sat on the old bench beneath the willow tree, the same one where I used to take her on summer mornings as a child. Back then, she would run ahead and pretend she was a bird. "I don't know how to start over," she said. "You don't need to know how," I answered. "You just need to begin." She looked at me. "Can I stay for a while?" "As long as you want." Her hand found mine, and for the first time in weeks, I felt the deep breath of peace returning slowly. But surely, the storm had passed. We were still standing. 2 months passed. The neighborhood, once stirred by sirens and scandal, had returned to its slow rhythm. The hedges were trimmed, the mail delivered, the dogs barked at passing bicycles. Life, in all its stubbornness, went on. And within that stillness, Emma began piecing herself back together. She found a part-time job at the city library, quiet, steady work that allowed her to breathe in the soft rustle of pages, the quiet shuffle of readers, and the smell of old bindings. She found something like sanctuary. "Good morning, Emma," said Mrs. Helen, the head librarian, as Emma walked in one Tuesday. A new batch of books arrived. Fancy sorting them. Emma smiled gently. "I'd like that." Her days were simple now, shelving books, stamping returns, answering questions in a voice still finding its strength. And every afternoon, she returned to the house, our house where the kettle always boiled at 5. And the porch light clicked on just before dusk. I never asked her about Marcus. Not directly. She would speak when she was ready. And until then, I let silence be its own kind of comfort. At dinner, she would ask about my roses, about Margaret's cat, to about the world as if it were a delicate object she was learning to hold again. One evening, after we had eaten in silence, she looked up. "I think I'd like to take a French class," she said, "at the community center." I smiled. "That's wonderful. I want to try something new, something just mine." Margaret, who had dropped by with a basket of lemons, perked up. "French. You say I lived in Paris for 2 years. I still remember a thing or two. That weekend, we planted flowers. Emma's idea. She knelt in the dirt beside me, fingers streaked with soil, a quiet joy in her face. "These were Mom's favorites," she said, placing a marigold in the earth. "I want them here again." We sat on the porch as the sun went down. 3 chairs, 3 cups of tea, and the soft hum of cicadas rising from the grass. Margaret told stories about her travels. I told tales from the years before Emma was born. Emma listened, sometimes smiling, sometimes lost in thought, but always present. "Next week," she said one evening, "I'm going to the courthouse. I want to change my name back. No more Thompson." Her voice was calm, but resolute. I nodded. "It's your name. You choose what it means." She didn't cry anymore. Not often. But when she did, it wasn't the howl of grief. It was the soft release of what could no longer be held. In time, the house changed. The room that once held Marcus's clothes was emptied. His scent disappeared. His shadow lifted. And in its place, new sounds, Emma humming while cooking, the creak of the old floorboards as she danced to music no one else could hear. The house lived again. One evening, as we watched the marigolds sway in the wind, she turned to me. "Thank you, Dad." "For what?" "For not giving up on me, on any of it." I reached over, touched her hand. "I couldn't. You're my daughter." And in that golden hour light, beneath the steady bloom of second chances, I saw her not as the woman broken by betrayal, but as the girl I had once lifted onto my shoulders, her laughter echoing through the trees. She was still there. She had survived. The story of our family did not end with sirens or courtrooms. It unfolded quietly, as most healing does not with drama, but with the slow, steady reclaiming of trust. Marcus was sentenced to 15 years. The charges were many attempted burglary, fraud, conspiracy. His polished charm cracked under the weight of evidence, and his pleas for leniency rang hollow. Emma did not attend the trial. She said she had already heard all the lies she ever needed. Tyler, on the other hand, stood in court with shaking hands and a lowered head. He accepted 5 years, with parole possible after 2. His cooperation, remorse, and the clarity with which he condemned Marcus helped. I attended his sentencing. When he turned around to look at me, I nodded, not in forgiveness, but in acknowledgement. He had chosen truth. Albeit late. That had to count for something. Emma never spoke Marcus's name again. It became a ghost, one that lingered in closets and empty drawers. then slowly faded with time and fresh air. She completed her French course. Margaret helped her practice. And sometimes I'd hear them giggling in the garden, trading tongue twisters and phrases that drifted into the evening like song. Emma applied for a full-time position at the library and got it. The first paycheck she received. She used to buy me a new armchair. For reading, she said, placing it beside the fireplace. And for watching the world with calm eyes. The house changed. The memories did not vanish, but they no longer dictated the atmosphere. New frames went up on the wall. The safe remained. But the key was now kept in a glass jar on the mantel, no longer hidden, no longer feared. Sometimes, Margaret would stay late, and the three of us would sit with tea and silence. That silence, once filled with suspicion, was now companionable, even warm. "I've been thinking," Emma said one night, "about starting a little book club for girls at the library. Just a space for them to talk. About anything." "That sounds like something your mother would have loved," I said. Emma smiled, a little wistfully. "I think she'd be proud." One Sunday morning, as light spilled through the kitchen windows, she turned to me and said, "Dad, do you think people really change?" I looked at her, this woman who had weathered storms, who had seen love twist into harm, and still chose tenderness. "Yes," I said, "not all people, but the ones who survive pain with their hearts intact, they do." She nodded, as if confirming something within herself. That spring, the marigolds bloomed wider than any year before. The garden, once choked by shadows, became a place of color and scent, and in the center of it all, Emma, kneeling beside Margaret, planting something new. The last entry in the police report listed the incident as attempted theft, foiled by homeowner intervention. But that's not what this story really was. It was a story about listening to what isn't said, about watching for the flicker in someone's eyes when their words sound too sweet. It was about trusting your instincts, even when your heart pleads otherwise. It was also a story about the Margarets, those quiet neighbors who offer cookies and warnings in equal measure. Their strength is not in confrontation, but in constant presence. If you have a Margaret in your life, hold them close. And if you can, be a Margaret for someone else. And above all, it was a story about love, not the kind shouted from rooftops, but the kind that waits in hallways, that makes tea at midnight, that sits beside someone in silence and says, "I'm not going anywhere." Because the world will always have its storms, but if we are lucky, and if we are watchful, we will find those who will stand with us in the rain. We will survive, together,